Thank
I want to
you.
thank you, Ed, very much for inviting us today. And I want to thank all of you for coming. And I hope that this will be a worthwhile experience for all of us to learn together. What we're going to talk about today, next, is really two things. 50 years ago, a man by the name of Milton Friedman, he won the Nobel Prize, economics. And he said to the world's CEOs, only profits, that's all you're responsible for as a CEO of your corporation, is to get only profits. Social good is not your responsibility, he said. That's up to the owners of the company. Those that own the company should decide how to use their money. Your job is to get profits. So for 50 years, the world's corporations have been focusing on profits only, and many of them have done a superb job. They've made so much money. The CEOs are making what? 10, 20, 30, 40 million dollars a year. But now the world has changed. Because of this thrust for profits only, lots of things have been sacrificed. Next. Next. Two things we're going to talk about today. One, a new commitment that's been made by 181 CEOs from the top 200 corporations in America. This is Apple, this is Amazon. These are these giant companies, and they've made a new commitment. And then I'd like to talk about the virus and its effect and how we could live with this virus, not let the virus control us the way it's been doing right now. Thank you. Next. Larry Fink is the CEO of a company called BlackRock. It's probably the largest corporation in the world. It owns $7.4 trillion of other corporations. And since he controls so many of the world's corporations, he said to them on January 15th, 2018, he demanded that these companies become socially responsible. And we're going to talk today about what does it mean to be socially responsible. Well, about a year later, 181 of these corporations said, yes, we will follow his advice and we will become socially responsible. And what they said next is, number one, we're going to be committed to delivering value to our customers. We're going to look at our customers differently. We're going to treat these customers differently than we have in the past. We're going to invest in our employees. We're going to focus on their skills, uplifting them, raising their talents. This is their commitment. They're going to deal fairly and ethically with their suppliers. They're going to start to look at all of their suppliers as partners in the world. And they're going to support the communities in which we work. We're going to now look at the environment. We're going to be more responsible for the environment. And then they said something brilliant. We're going to look at the long-term value for shareholders, not short-term, not this quarter. We're going to look at the long-term value for shareholders. Now, the challenge for us is to make sure they live up to this commitment. If they live up to this commitment, this is an amazing opportunity for you to have a new job at work, for you to focus in a whole new direction, for you to improve the relationship with your customers, for you to treat employees much differently than you've treated people in the past. We're going to look at that too. So there are 5 areas that they're committed to. In this short 60 minutes or less now, we're going to look at 2 of them primarily. And then we hope maybe in a few weeks we'll come back and we can discuss the other commitments that they're making and what kind of opportunities there exist for you in this new commitment. And we'll give you opportunity at the end for questions. We also have chat. And if you go to chat, you will be able to interact with us. You will be able to ask questions. And we will be asking you questions for you to respond on chat. Thank you very much. And I hope you enjoy this hour with us. Next. What can you do? Okay, I want you to think about this, how this is going to represent a new opportunity for you. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Ahmed.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So we can go on to the next slide. And I want to begin by saying Like, let's go back to the Earth slide. So I want to begin by saying that we only have one planet. And if we don't take care of it, we really don't have an alternative. So it behooves us to pay attention to it. And the commitment I'm going to, so Norman shared the 5 commitments. I'm going to focus on the one that is about supporting the communities that we work in. And before we dive deep into it, sometimes it's useful to look at what good looks like. And we have an excellent example. So let's look at that example. Stop. So TVS is arguably the best company in India. They have won the prestigious Deming Award. They were the first one to win that. And they are an example of what socially responsible looks like. Not only do they have spotless facilities, they have provide beautification for their surroundings. For instance, they built a bird sanctuary outside the plant. And not only that, they send their consultants out to villages to train women who are generally very, very much neglected and give them skills to make a living. And this has led into a flywheel of growth. They have worked with 5,000 villages, over 5,000 villages, and have uplifted over 3 million people out of poverty. Imagine that. And with this current pandemic, they've given back to the community by offering PPEs and masks to healthcare workers and the government. Now, I want to pause here and reflect why these actions are thoughtful and not an accident. It requires you to think deeply and strategically. Transformations are more like gardening than mechanical. And deeper thinking will help us and give us great value. I want to share a particular story, a story in particular. In 1995, the US National Park Service reintroduced wolves to the Yellowstone, and that had been absent for a long while. What happened next is celebrated by scientists as one of the greatest success stories ever. Let's watch a short video to see how that played out in the long term.
And the classic example is what happened in the Yellowstone National Park in the United States when wolves were reintroduced in 1995. Now, we all know that wolves kill various species of animals, but perhaps we're slightly less aware that they give life to many others. So the wolves, small in number, transform not just the ecosystem of the Yellowstone National Park, this huge area of land, but also its physical geography.
Wasn't that inspirational? And just like Mother Nature is the original source of information for inspiration for many, many engineering marvels, still to this day, we look towards Mother Nature to look at what we can create in our own societies. This is a great lesson for transformation efforts and why long-term thinking is important instead of short-term profits. And profits can align with this long-term thinking. Now I want to switch gears. Now, every company wants to be a beloved brand, and it's worth investing brand image with sustainable efforts. This is not just good for the environment and communities and our economy, it is also good for business. We have several examples in the book, but I want to highlight a couple. Google's data center uses 50% less energy than the rest of the world. And they've also committed to $1 billion in renewable energy projects. Lego is another good example. They've invested $150 million over the next 15 years to fight climate change and reduce waste. They're committed to reducing their packaging and plan to source 100% renewable energy. They also aim to hit a 90% recycling rate on materials. So this begs the question, now what can we do? So let's go to the next slide. Now, one of the ideas here is that we can invest in making the company buildings and surroundings beautiful, like we saw the example of TVS. We can keep the cities near our facilities clean. And next, we can send our trainers to local schools. Invest in our youth Instead, invest in the underserved population and give them the skills to bring them the craftsmanship, make them craftsmen again, make them masters. And next, we can also help eliminate pollution, reduce harmful waste that hurts our environment. And although all this may sound like common sense, it's not very common in practice. But we can all agree that the urgency to change is now, and we need to connect making profits to doing what's right. And from here, I'm going to transition to Christoph to talk about another commitment.
Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you very much. Great stuff.